Illinois lawmakers could possibly make it easier for children who live in foster care to live with their relatives or other people close to them. According to Capital News Illinois, the Kinship in Demand, or KIND Act, allows the state's Department of Children and Family Services to use federal money to put more effort into finding families for foster children. The bill would also have different criminal background checks for relatives. The bill passed the state Senate and now heads to the House.
We meet with the parents, we talk to them about who their supports are. We have a number of clinically evaluated forms that help us to have these really important conversations so that parents can identify who their family members are, to provide the least amount of trauma when we have to take a child into our care.
We believe that all foster parents and relative caregivers need support, education, and resources to effectively care for the children in their homes. Parenting a child who's experienced trauma is different from other parenting experiences they may have had.